Baldur's Gate 3 just turned 2 years old. Well, it was a couple months ago, but hey, happy birthday! To celebrate this occasion, I'd like to not just focus on the game itself today, but instead highlight some of the people who are keeping the Baldur's Gate 3 scene and my channel alive and thriving. The mod makers of the world. So for this playthrough, I have downloaded over 100 different mods, and I'm going to do my best to cover them all as we go. In case I can't find a chance to talk about every mod, I'll at least try my best to show all the mods on screen if they appear, so keep your eyes peeled as we go, or check out the big list of mods I'll show at the very end of the video. And hit the like button real quick. It makes the YouTube gods and me both very happy. Also, there's this new thing called Hype if you're on mobile. I don't know what it does, but hey, maybe try hitting that. Maybe we'll find out together what that does. I have no idea. But before we get into all that, I think I've got some news our vampire friend Astarion might appreciate. Today's video is sponsored by Watcher of Realms. They just dropped a new Dracula crossover event, and it is really cool. Watcher of Realms is a strategy RPG on PC and mobile with over 200 heroes across different factions, and the gameplay is way more tactical than most other mobile RPGs. If you like games that reward strategy instead of just auto-playing everything for you, then this one is for you. Getting back to that new Dracula event though, Watcher of Realms has just dropped 4 new heroes. Count Dracula, capable of doing some insane single target burst damage, Vlad Dracula, who you can get just by playing the game, Lady Mina, who can summon Dracula through a mirror, and of course, Dr. Van Helsing. There are also free rewards, mini-games, daily event missions, and a bunch of in-game unlocks just for logging in. New players can catch up fast thanks to auto fights, quick start, and gear tools, so you're not behind everybody else. They also put out a Dracula personality test, which is surprisingly accurate. You can try it yourself by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below, and download Watcher of Realms on PC or mobile. Thank you to Watcher of Realms for supporting the channel. Now back to the video. So getting right into things, I will be playing as the Dirge. So spoilers for that, I guess. I still get comments years after the game came out telling me that I spoiled things. That being said, I of course have come up with my own backstory for my character, Dumpezus. Dumpezus is a Fey-Ree, a combination of elf and demon. Because of his unsavory lineage, Dumpezus was dumped into the wild as a baby. But he was found by an old bronze dragon who was well past his own prime. The dragon raised Dumpezus as his own, and when he was old enough to venture out into the world, the dragon granted Dumpezus some of his own power. To perfectly represent this story, I will be using the Dragon Patron subclass mod, one of the coolest subclass mods out there. Also made by the Wailing Bard, which is really cool because they made the Commoner class mod that I used for this other video. Great work, the Wailing Bard. Now we have got a lot to cover, so let's jump into the playthrough itself. I started things by freeing us, as per usual, and then I figured I'd have a little fun by using the Tactician Enhanced mod to raise all enemies' max health by 15%. Nothing crazy, but I felt like that was necessary because, as you may have noticed, I have 2 spell slots when I should only have 1. This is from the spell slot times 2 and feats every 2 levels mod. Yes, this makes the game a lot easier, but it also makes things more fun, and keep in mind, this isn't really a challenge playthrough, it's just for fun. I met up with Lae'zel and we took on some imps, stopping once more. I promise I'll do my best to stop doing this. But here we get to see a few extra imps that come with the More Enemies in Basic Fights mod. The creator of this mod also made the Extra Encounters and Mini Bosses mod, which I also have enabled, so we will definitely run into some new stuff later. After taking care of the imps, I freed Shart and we ran right to the Helm. The battle here also has some new enemies, or I guess more of a reorganizing of the enemies that were already here, and while it's a bit more hectic, I do think they balance things out pretty well. But as always, I reached the Helm, the ship came careening into the sky above the Sword Coast, and I woke up on the beach the next morning. Right away, I got to pick some rewards for getting through the tutorial. I am 99% sure this is a result of the Ancient Mega Pack mod, a mod that adds over 2,000 new items and pieces of equipment, and this one is an absolute must for me personally. Not only does it add new loot to keep things exciting, but it also randomizes where all that good stuff goes. I woke up my girl Shadowheart and brought brought her to camp to mess around with another mod, the Origin Mirror Unlocked mod. This lets you edit the appearance of your Origin companions, and I did so to give Shadowheart just a slightly new look. She's got some more purpley Char stuff going on, and I dumped the big Sharin headpiece ponytail thing in exchange for some more subtle silver accessories, but made sure to keep the bangs and tight hair because I think it's supposed to kind of represent her secretive and closed off nature, or I'm thinking about it way too much. I don't know. I also made sure to change her armor because Shadowheart clearly wants to keep her Char worship to be a secret, and in her vanilla armor, she has a big old symbol of Char smack dab in the middle of her chest. Not very sneaky, Shadowheart. I also used the custom companions mod to create some brand new characters. Yorm is a frost giant with the Oath of the Frozen Wilds subclass, and then Vasha is a moon elf who is a blood sorcerer. Honestly, kind of a better fit for Dirge than my character. Now, you might be bummed that I'll be mostly using custom companions as we go, but that's because there's so many new races and sub-races mods that I wanted to make sure I got to use as many of them as I could. Before leaving camp, I used the Faerun Colors mod to dye our respective armors, and then I respec'd Shart into the Forge domain, which may not be a great narrative choice, but it sounded cool and I wanted to check it out. We immediately had another new encounter with some intellect devourers on the beach, and then I found Lae'zel's dead body nearby. I had kind of forgotten that she had died on the Nautiloid. Like I said, I'll be using custom companions and Shadowheart, but we'll get to why I'm keeping her later. So Lae'zel is going to camp, at least for now. The new encounters don't stop anytime soon because up the way a bit we ran into some Kuo-Toa. We also got ambushed by a couple of wolves. It's like we're playing Skyrim or something. And then we came upon the, I think, only conflicting encounters that I found in this playthrough when we had to fight off a bear and these random adventurers at the same time. It was a pretty tough battle, only being level 2 right now, but we made it through. I met and sent Astarion to camp shortly after, and then I got surprised by a new Mind Flayer in the wreckage of the Nautiloid. I then got distracted while getting a shot of Gale's portal thing, and when I came back to my computer, I just kind of forgot what I was doing, and I left him behind. Don't worry, I'll catch up with him later. I scared off the adventurers outside these ruins, and then made my way inside, and we took care of its inhabitants. During all that, we hit level 3, and I am now realizing that I forgot to mention the new spell mods I'm using. I'll talk about a few specific spells as we go, but here's a list of those respective mods. We were all pretty eepy after the escapades of that day, so I called it a night. In the morning, we got surprised by a few stray goblins who kinda kicked our asses, to be honest, but then we faced off with the bigger horde of them who didn't surprise us, which led us inside the grove itself. There's a new waypoint inside the grove, which is really nice, thanks to the Waypoints Extended mod, but otherwise the grove itself is mostly the same. After going under the grove and killing the goblins there, I found this cool helmet. I've always had a thing for helmets that like cover your eyes, which sounds stupid now that I say it out loud, but they just, I don't know, I think they look cool. So I'm gonna use this helmet for, I think, the entire rest of the run, if I remember right. I did the normal grove stuff, help Arabella, talk to Nettie, and eventually I got around to fighting the Harpies. Yorm's cold damage and my lightning damage were good fits for this battle, but we still had a pretty tough time. There were some more Kuo-Toa around the corner, no match for us, and then just one more Harpy guarding the nest. I took a long rest after that, not just because it was a hard day, but also because I want to make sure I'm not missing any things in camp. I talked to Shart that night, and then Astarion got all creepy and weird, and he snuck away while we slept. Probably just had to pee or something. The next day, I remembered that Gale existed. Sorry, pal, my bad. And I sent him to camp with the others. We found a naked troll under a bridge. I don't think that's how that Dora song goes, but pretty close. And then we caught up with Eredin's crew, who was under attack by Bone Snapper. That is such a fucking awesome name. Love that. I found, and of course pet my boy Scratch. I bumped into an owl bear who was big chillin'. I fought this bear in the river, and then I met Karlak, and, well, I bet you can guess where I sent her by now. I went to take care of her paladin buddies, and when I pushed Sorel, when she fell, I looted her body and remembered that I had added the Traders Drop All Loot mod. Again, this makes the game pretty easy and probably encourages murder hobo tendencies, but hey, it sucks to miss out on some loot because you didn't trade with them before murdering them. Killing the other paladins actually went really well, but then I stumbled into Little John?
Yeah!
No, not Lil John, Little John.
What?
Unfortunately for him, he was outnumbered pretty badly, and I got some gold for my troubles. Nothing seemed different when I encountered Flind and her Null gang, but taking care of that did bring me to level 4, and this is where I realized I once again forgot to say something earlier, because I have also added some new feats mods to keep things from being stale. Frankly, some of these feats are pretty broken, and I will avoid using anything insanely busted, but I was excited to see the Descendant of Dragons feat. This was right in line with my character's background, so I chose that. Vasha's feat gave her some attributes of a Death Domain cleric, which is also very fitting for her background. Later that night in camp, Will showed up, completely forgot about him honestly, and then Raphael also appeared the next day. Not much of note happened after that for a while, but that changed when we made our way into Anti-Ethel's Swamp. We first encountered a little group of will-o-wisps, which was not all too challenging, but still pretty cool. And then after taking care of the hag herself, always an accomplishment when you can defeat her without her escaping, I did battle with these Mephits and Woodwoads, which really took it out of my team. We slept, I killed Alfira in my sleep, my bad, and in the morning I found a very interesting new enemy. Shaalia? I don't know how to say it, I can't read. Her whole thing seems to be turning your team against each other, but she was in a bit over her head and she went down in one turn. Seemed pretty cool otherwise though. I took care of some normal game stuff like exposing and ultimately defeating the Shadow Druids, but then a while later I came across maybe one of the largest scale battles I've seen in this game at Joaquin's Rest. I think the goal here is to make you actually feel the raid on Joaquin's Rest, the raid that got Ravengard kidnapped and the inn up in flames, and while it was really cool, it was a good reminder that Baldur's Gate and specifically like raw D&D battles can sometimes drag when they are too big. But when the battle was over, I got to hit level 5. The new encounters really help you level up a bit quicker, which is great for me because level 5 is, I would say, when your characters really start to feel powerful. Now, I'm not sure if it was a result of me stopping back in camp for a second or the battle taking too long, but when I entered the inn, I found Benrin and Floric both dead. Whoops! For a while thereafter, I pretty much just carried on as I normally would. I robbed the Zentarim and then invaded the Goblin camp. But there's a fun little mod that lets you get to know Minthara a little more while not having to sacrifice the tieflings. Win-win. But then I knocked her out the next day, so, you know, sorry. I rescued Halsin, I killed that rotten bitch. That was so hateful, unnecessary. I killed that rotten bitch, Roamu. Jesus Christ, I don't know why I hate her so much. I killed that rotten bitch, Roa Moonglow, and stole everything she has ever owned, and then I finished off the goblin leaders with fairly minimal difficulty. I was excited after that to see my guardian. Look, I know that this is the Emperor. I am fully 100% consciously aware of that, but I will never miss an opportunity to make a bad tiefling bitch. Actually, I guess that kind of makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Holy shit, this just dawned on me. He takes the form of whatever would make you trust him the most, and I would be a goddamn liar if I said that I wouldn't do whatever this woman told me to do. Anywho, I celebrated with the tieflings the following night, and while we were at it, I tested another aspect of that custom companions mod. There's an option to duplicate an existing NPC and turn them into a companion, so I tried that out on Lacrissa and was pretty blown away by it. That is so sick. You could just make anyone a companion. How insane is that? Back to beautiful women though, I of course spent the night with Shadowheart. Not just because she's the most interesting girl in the world, but because I have installed the Really Shadowheart mod, which adds in some new stuff for Sharp, specifically for when you've romanced her. We'll come back to that later for sure, but for now, let's move on to the next section of the game. Well, real quick before we made our way into the mountain pass, I gave Lae'zel a haircut. Now to be totally clear, I like her old hair way better, but it's hard for me to believe that Lae'zel would even let a weakness such as long, grabbable, and potentially sight-impairing hair get in her way. This cut, while not as cool, makes a little more sense to me. I'm taking her for a bit, and I made her a Psy Warrior fighter. Feels pretty fitting for a Githyanki. Maybe that's racist. I also got a little bored of the Forge domain for Shart, so I instead switched her to the Arcana domain. I definitely found that one a little more interesting personally. Getting right into the mountain pass though, things started off well when I ambushed these goblins, and then right up the road I spotted some Githyanki fighting with the ghouls and such. I figured I would just let them do their thing. While I waited for that to be over, I beat the ever-loving shit out of Esther and her new bodyguards. Cheeky, giving her some bodyguards because so many people just kill her without hesitation or remorse, but they were no match for us. It's on site with her. Who absolutely was a match, though, were the stinky bastards who had apparently beaten the Githyanki. This fight took me almost 20 minutes on the dot, but we did eventually come out on top. Things came to a bit of a screeching and painful halt, though, when I ran into Vinley Desh and her band of crawling claws. She's got some wild magic nonsense going on, and she laid us out. I got my run back pretty quickly, but son of a bitch, the mountain pass is pretty brutal, even with all my new goodies. That sentiment was confirmed when I next got surprised by another band of Githyanki. They slaughtered my team, and I took that as a sign that maybe I should come back to this place later. I always take the goblin camp path to the Underdark, so this time I decided I would first kill the big spider and jump down the... My bad. Now that we are in the Underdark, though, I think it's time we get another new companion. Someone to lead us through the Underdark. Someone like Fade, the Loren Drow Ranger with the Primeval Guardian subclass. With him by our side, I felt like I could properly tackle the Underdark. Doing that began by fighting with an Alpha Minotaur. He's pretty tough, but frankly, it just wasn't really a fair fight. We did have a much tougher time with his buddies, though, because the numbers were much less in our favor. We barely managed to come out on top, and in doing so, we were brought to level 6. I got a pretty solid passive from my Draconic Patron, and took a really neat new feat, the Exceptional Mind feat. It lets you choose an element that correlates to one of your 6 stats, and when you deal any damage, it'll add on 1d8 of whatever element you chose, plus the modifier that stat goes with. I gave that same feat to Shart, except hers is based on her wisdom and deals additional radiant damage, and Vasha got the Student of Undeath feat, which gave her some abilities that a necromancy wizard would normally get. I'm not sure if this is part of a mod or not. I suspect it's from the Really Shadowheart mod, but Lae'zel and Shart had their little spat, and when we cut to later that night, it was Lae'zel who was the aggressor. Maybe I just did something different, maybe it's a mod, but either way, it was cool to see something kind of new in a scene like this that I have seen so many times. I just said seen like 100 times, my god. Now look, gang, the Underdark is deceptively large, and there's a lot of new stuff, so I'm gonna go through it as quickly as I can so that we can all get home tonight at a reasonable hour. We ran into some Zentarim who were fighting off a huge hook horror, and then I slayed them once they were done, and then right outside the Myconid colony, there was a big ambush waiting for us. The Dwergar and the True Soul tagging along with them were respectable, but we are punching pretty high above our weight class right now, and we put them down. We took care of the normal stuff, like helping out Bainlin and killing Philro, before we ran into another new encounter with the Bulette and its Bulette babies. They were surprisingly durable, and actually did quite a number on us. The surprises continued when we made our way towards the beach area and came across a patrol of Dwergar. That of course led us right on to the fight with the Dwergar who are normally here, and I did a pretty good job of keeping them at bay. Before sailing across the beach, I got jump scared by a mimic, which was actually really neat, and then I took care of the ever so dangerous spectator. I also often forget to do this, but I went down and checked on the Kuotoa and got a cool buff for the remainder of the game. Actually, it goes really well with Vasha's blood sorcery stuff, so that's pretty cool. I do usually forget to visit the Arcane Tower as well, but I was glad that I remembered this time because there were some Azers waiting outside for us. Not a very crazy battle, but it was still fun and cool to see something new. I got a fun idea after that, and I decided to take Oatmealum along for the ride across the lake. I figured he'd like to see the Illithid tadpoles in action, and I found a fitting class for him, the Eldritch Lore Wizard. With that, we began our trip through the Dark Lake. I pushed this guy in the water, duh, and then after we dealt with his friends, and while I was trying to open a chest, fucking old Greg showed up. Like I said earlier, these 1v4s are pretty easy for us, but this was still a really funny encounter, and I had absolutely no idea that it was coming. And as far as the Grimforge itself goes, it wasn't really any different. There was a new Mega Mimic, which was fun, but otherwise, everything else was, I think, the same as before.
I suppose we can manage that.
After slaying the vast majority of all life in this place, we did eventually reach level 7. I totally forgot to mention it earlier, I think I've said that a lot now, but I've also got some new Eldritch invocations, and one that I took lets me wear medium and heavy armor, so that's why I got this stuff on. Before we faced off with the final boss of this place, I found this tombstone. It said that destroying it would make the Grim fight even harder, but I don't use the Forge Hammer, so I don't really think I need any more of a challenge, to be honest. We did take care of Grim though, tough battle as per usual, and I once again tested the limits of the custom companions mod. And yep, you can really just clone anyone. But with Grim dead and the Forge thoroughly trashed, I parted ways with Omlidium, picked Lae'zel back up, grabbed Yorm for some decent muscle, and made my way back to the mountain pass. This time we were more than a match for the Githyanki ambush on the lift, but right at the bottom there were even more enemies waiting for us. But we're a lot stronger than we were before, and they didn't stand a chance. The drunk-ass kobolds, the Grimishka weirdos, and the big birds on top of the monastery were all the same, but there were a few harpies thrown in there, as well as some Githyanki waiting to get the jump on us. I guess killing them got Shart feeling sentimental for some reason, because right after that she told me about how she became a Sharan. I think she's starting to like me. The Githyanki inside the crash sure as hell don't like me though. I killed the traitor lady immediately because I wanted all her shit for free, and that was enough XP to hit level 8. Another cool feat I took was the Stormborn feat, basically just a collection of storm sorcery abilities, which again, kind of feels like it fits the build I'm going for. And for Yorm, I used a mod to increase his strength beyond the normal cap of 20 because, I mean, come on, he's a frost giant. He's got to be pretty dang strong. As with the Grim Forge though, pretty much everything was as it usually is in the Kresh. There were some extra Githyanki here and there, but nothing all too notable. I took care of them all with pretty minimal difficulty, even bodied old Wargaz, and then I told my guardian that Vlaakith would have to do her own dirty work. With the Kresh exterminated, I figured it might be fun to make another new companion. I made a Githyanki monk named Keseth. Thanks, fantasynamegenerators.com. She's a way of the Ascendant Dragon Monk. I like dragons, bite me. And while I will almost certainly get bored of her pretty quickly, I still think she's pretty neat. The Underdark is clear and the mountain pass is wrapped up, so I guess it's time for us to head into Act 2. And with that, there will be plenty of new stuff, so I'm excited to get into it. I almost immediately saw a new encounter off the path a bit, but I can only assume I am not ready for that shit yet because they look pretty strong, so I'll come back to that later. We ran into the Harpers as per usual. I helped them out, and they led me to Last Light. Jaheira tickled my toes a bit, and then Marcus showed up to ruin everybody's day, but his day was the only one being ruined. Well, actually, people got kidnapped and stuff, but, you know, at least they didn't get murdered like Marcus did. Shortly after that, I hunted down Karnis, and my fight with him went much smoother than it normally would. Maybe it has something to do with me being level 8 and having a bunch of strong feats and stuff, but no, couldn't be that. Well, regardless of how strong I thought my team was, we were sorely underprepared for this motherfucker, the Eternal Duelist. Basically, if anyone that isn't under his spell attacks him, they take a shit ton of psychic damage, and the person that is under his spell is forced to attack him, and you can't control anything they do. He actually completely wiped my party the first go around, but we had much better luck when we fought against him again. I started taking care of the Thorms around here, the first of which was Garangoth, but then I found a veritable war happening right outside the bridge to Moonrise. The enemies weren't very strong, but damn, there were a lot of them. I carried on with my gaslighting of the Thorms, getting Thisabald to blow himself up, and then after that, I got some rest. Damn, man, the Emperor sure does know how to get me, doesn't he? Anyways, the next day, I took on the 3 Stooges in the little Shar Shrine area. I gaslit the 3rd Thorm into letting his little girl stab him to death, and then I ran into a fucking dragon. Seriously, just a big undead copper dragon waiting for me outside the House of Healing. It put the hands to us a little bit, I won't lie, but with a dragon patron warlock and an ascendant dragon monk on my team, we proved that we had the better dragon power. That fight brought us up to, holy shit, are we really level 9 already? That's crazy. I took the Destructive Wave spell, probably my favorite vanilla spell if I'm being honest, and Shart got a few new cool spells as well. With that level up, I also got the ability to summon a Draconic Spirit to fight alongside me. It's not incredibly powerful, but it is sick, and I appreciate the option. The Kuotoa ambush was full of pushovers, as per usual, and the jelly guys in the stink hole weren't too bad either. Outside in the graveyard, though, we ran into Necrofex, basically just a roided up Death Shepherd, and I'm pretty sure that's a Warhammer reference, and even though I know fuck all about Warhammer, I still think that's pretty cool for the hammerheads out there. Is that what people call Warhammer fans? I just made that up, but if it's not, it definitely should be. It's time for Moonrise, though, and after I dealt with the little goblin fucks, I did something I don't think I've ever done before. I just didn't play along with Zarel's absolute bullshittery, and then killed pretty much everybody in the tower, and freeing Minthara in in the process. After that was over, I realized I almost forgot to do Thaniel's quest, so I got to work on that. This fight is always fun for me because I just use literally all of my strongest spells and nuke the people attacking the portal. Now that we are approaching the tail end of the act, I felt like it would be a solid time to make a new companion. This is Lysana, an Aasimar who is a zealot barbarian. I was kind of using her as a stand-in for Aelin until I could free her because I find it hard to believe that Selûne wouldn't send in some muscle to help us out. But I also felt like I was missing out on having a fighter on my team. I like fighters, they're my favorite. So I made another guy named Die. Just D-Y, Die. In hindsight, I realized I might like the long hair and beard look a little too much, but anyways, he is a human brute fighter who uses dual wielding to build up damage really quickly, and the dual wielding prodigy feat was a perfect fit to make that happen. Before I made them, we were like literally 2 kills away from hitting the next level, so I traveled underneath Last Light and put the mean locks down, which brought us to level 10. With my tough-ass team, I went back to the starting area and confronted the pack that was waiting there. I guess I probably should have fought them earlier on because I fucked them up, my bad. After running a couple more errands, killing the shambling mound and beating up a child, I made my way into the Gauntlet of Shar. And you know what? I'm not gonna waste your time. The Gauntlet was the exact same. I did all the stuff in the Gauntlet and then watched Shar make the right decision sparing Aelin. And now that Shadowheart is free of Shar's influence, for the most part at least, she got her normal eye color back and lost the purple makeup. Good for her. We slept before heading into the final confrontation of this act, and Scleritus told me that I was gonna kill my girlfriend. Thankfully, I was able to control myself, and Shadowheart helped me through the rough night. When we did go to Moonrise again, there were barely any enemies there, and that was great because it normally lags like crazy here, and it didn't this time. Now, my team is overpowered, I know that, so I cranked up the extra HP of all enemies from 15% to 35%. I get to stay strong and keep my cool spells, and enemies get to live longer. Even with that little buff, Ketheric's first wave of defense fell incredibly flat. To prevent that from happening again, I bumped the difficulty up a little more from 35% to 50%. As we approached the Chosen of the Dead 3, I noticed that Orin looked kind of different. I went back through my mods and looked, and yeah, apparently I got a mod for that. I have no memory of doing that at all, but she looks great. Cool mod. As far as the fight with Kethercul went, things got off to a rough start when the Mind Flayer stunned most of my team. But I kept everyone safe with a darkness cloud. We couldn't see out, but they couldn't see in. I used my next turn to free Aelin, and Shart fucking bodied these skeletons. After some time, Ketheric was surrounded, and we beat the dog piss out of him. Merkel appeared. I love this cutscene, gets me every time. And then the real fight began. He slapped pretty much my entire team, which put me a little on edge, but after I spent another few turns pelting him with my strongest spells and abilities, we prevailed. And that's really it for Act 2. And I also am now realizing this is yet another video that I accidentally made way too long, because we haven't even started the longest and most complicated act yet, so like I said earlier, I'm gonna try to get through things pretty quick. But again, if I miss mentioning any mods or anything, there's a full list of them at the end of this video, so you can check that out if you feel like you didn't get to see enough. Back to it though, Shart learned the truth about her past, and she told me that she actually wants to date me now. Aww. And hey look, I can hug her. That's so cute. Also, with Act 2 being done, I took Vasha back on my team, as Lysana had very successfully done her job. Then once we left the Shadow-Cursed lands, I got a cool cutscene between Minthara and Halsin. Apparently this was originally in the game, but they cut it for some reason, so it's really neat to actually see it play out. We did the whole song and dance with the Emperor. That guy's a dick, I know, but wrapping things up there was enough to get us to level 11. For that, I got a sick new level 6 spell. In the morning, Shadowheart showed me her new hair, and I, of course, decided to do my own thing with it. I basically just let her hair down, because now that she's not all tied up in the Sharan dogma, I feel like she could loosen up a little bit. I also gave myself a haircut. What, you guys don't give your characters haircuts throughout your playthrough? Anyways, things got hot immediately in Rivington when I ran into some assassins. Things also continued heating up when I came across this Githyanki patrol. No clue what the hell they were doing here, but I beat them up. After that, I gave Vasha the Astral Tadpole, and she didn't get all ugly thanks to the normal half-Elithid mod. I did all the circus stuff, and then down the road, I fought some doppelgangers. Then I did some new shit like I did at Moonrise, and this time I just killed the flaming fists that were blocking the way to Worm's Crossing. Fuck them, they're jerks. I also got Shart a cute little statue. Man, fuck a boo basket. Get your significant other a statue. She also does this funny thing now where after a while she'll just like make you kiss her, which is great, but sometimes it's not the most appropriate moment. I did make another new companion, Garandath, who kinda like how I'm pretending Lysana was sent by Selûne, I'm also pretending that this guy was sent by Voss to free Orpheus. He's a paladin with the Oath of the Eldritch Hunt, which is a sick new subclass. But after watching Gortash's stupid little ceremony, I made a pretty unnecessary decision. I lowered the XP requirements to hit each of the next few levels because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to hit level 20 if I didn't. I didn't need to do that, as you're about to see. Well, funny enough, we did hit level 12 shortly after, the max vanilla level, and then I killed a bunch of rats. I don't know why I felt the need to share that. Then I'd say nothing too exciting happened until I faced off with Answer and had one of the craziest back and forth battles of my entire life. Even with my team being certifiably OP, he was still kicking my ass. Also, Rip Garandath, he got fucking disintegrated. To replace him, I took a page out of the old D&D player handbook. Well, not the literal player handbook, but I made a goofy character for once, Biff Stankass. He's a goblin rogue, and he smells. We found him in a dumpster. With Biff at our side, we confronted Shadowheart's old friends and put them all in the fucking dirt. Now, whenever I do this quest, I just kind of throw my hands up and say, hey man, you guys do whatever you think is right, because, you know, I feel like it's not really my place for me to decide what happens here. But this time, when I did that, Shadowheart's parents decided not to kill themselves, which was a pretty exciting change. And because of the Really Shadowheart mod, I was not only able to tell them to put on some damn clean clothes, but I also asked her dad for her blessing to marry Shadowheart. That is so cute. Back to killing. I helped out my boy Volo, and that brought me to level 13. Hell yeah, baby, level 7 spell time. Although I was the only one who got any, which was weird. I probably either fucked up the load order, and this was just user error, or maybe clerics and sorcerers just don't have any level 7 spells with these mods, and I'm heavily leaning towards it being my fault. I took plenty of joy in watching Aelin snap Lorarcan. Yep, I'm gonna leave it at that.
You are broken by its beauty. Broken. By its beauty.
Level 14 came real quick after I killed some fish dudes, and I got access to a fun little draconic form. Now, I'm trying not to focus on old stuff and just keep talking about the new stuff, but remember how I said I shouldn't have changed the XP requirements? Well, that's because just doing part of Ethel's quest made me hit level 15. We're moving a little too fast now, my bad. The level 8 spells are cool. I wanted to experience more of them though, so I made a new companion, a Bladesong wizard named Finster. I know the Bladesong subclass isn't new, but I've never used it before, so it was new to me. While I may prefer sorcerers over wizards, I can't deny that the spell selection for wizards is just way better. And he got to use level 7, 8, and spoiler alert, 9 spells. I eventually wrapped up the whole Ethel thing. I should probably be more careful, but I always just kill her and totally forget about the kid she ate, or whatever she did with it. And then I started my assault on Gortash's warehouse. There was a new fight inside against some helmed horrors, one of my favorite D&D monsters, very cool, and then that brought me to level 16. Yeah, I fucked up the XP thing bad, I know. We hit the Iron Throne though, and I did my best to free everyone, but I completely forgot about my buddy Omelalulilele. Once again, my bad. Oh, and we're level 17. Level 9 spells, woo! You guys are gonna be mad at me for this. I can feel the comments already. You made the game too easy, how is it even fun? I jump off a bridge. I probably shouldn't leave that in there. I might leave that in there, I don't know. Even though we are a ridiculously high level, I had a really tough battle against these pirate folk. Their leader had some insane ability that made her friends all really strong, but it was fun to have a reason to go all out, dropping meteor swarms and shit, but then we hit level 18. I got a really cool new spell at one point called Shape Change, and one of the shapes I can take is a red dragon. Now, it would be cool if I could pick the color of dragon to match my build more, but this is still awesome. As a dragon, I fought and killed the Steel Watcher Titan, and then we hit level 19. Yep. After some more nonsense and invading Cazador's tower, we reached the final level, level 20. Finster got some signature spells, which is an awesome addition, keeping to the real D&D wizard progression, and I can finally relax because I don't have to interject level ups every 5 seconds now. But from here, I killed Cazador and freed his prisoners. I threw hands with Raphael, which went really well for me actually. I beat up and killed Gortash, fuck him. I slayed Saravok in the murder tribunal. I ran into the Eternal Duelist again, which is a funny jump scare. I battled Vlaakith's nasty zombie people in the sewers, and they were surprisingly strong. And then the coolest part of any of these mods that have happened so far was when I was able to invite Shadowheart to sleep with me at night from now on. Look how cute that is. Although that boy sure is groping her, isn't he? The really Shadowheart mod continued to be great when, after Orin and I had our little duel to the death and I decided to reject Ball, Shadowheart got a new scene reacting to my death. This is awesome. I feel like this absolutely should have been part of the vanilla game, and it's kind of crazy that it's not. But yeah, people making their own cutscenes is so cool and exciting to me. I love that. Now, I'm not sure which mod adds this guy, Aurelio, but he was fucking great. Similar to the Crawling Claw lady from earlier, this guy just kind of abuses wild magic, and it was really fun to deal with. Dude turned Vasha into a fucking rat. That's what it's all about, man. That's D&D, that's art. We are quickly approaching the end now, and before reaching the final stage, I slept once more, and this time Shart was groping me. Beautiful. I wasn't expecting many new things at the very tail end of the game, but I was dead wrong, because almost immediately we were confronted by some agents of the Netherbrain. We fucked them up, but I was glad to see that they didn't slack on the very end. When we got to the part where people would normally free Orpheus, I decided not to. I just don't like when people get mad at me, and the Emperor does a very good job of manipulating and gaslighting me. I also have autism, so maybe it's just related. I don't know. I don't like when he gets mad at me. But otherwise, everything was the same leading up to the Netherbrain, but before climbing to the top, I set the additional health for enemies from 50% to 100%. I mean, hey, we're level 20 and this is the final fight, so we might as well go all out. That final fight was pretty brutal. I kept getting counterspelled, which was blowing some of my highest level slots, and then when we reached the crown, I got hit with some bullshit. How can somebody get stunned inside of a globe of invulnerability? Isn't that the whole fucking point of the spell, that nothing can touch you? Well, regardless, when we reached the brain itself, I bombarded it with all I had. Shadowheart also had an I'm still standing moment when she got stunned and left behind, and then through the entire next turn, when everybody was beating the shit out of her, she never went down. That is one hell of a woman right there. But yeah, folks, that's about it. I destroyed the brain and all of its spawn. I convinced Lae'zel to stick around. I was glad to see Gale let his ambitions rest a bit. Will and Karlach smoked some doobies in hell, and Shadowheart and I had a very cute new moment where I was able to propose to her. I think of all of the new mods, the really Shadowheart one is my favorite for sure, but I'm pretty biased. I met up with the gang afterwards and celebrated, and my playthrough came to an end. It took about 50 hours to reach the end of this one, which was due to a lot of new stuff, which is pretty awesome. I love that people are still so in love with this game, and I hope that I did an okay job of showing off some of the really cool work that people have done. I'm gonna start putting all the mods on screen now and try my best to categorize them, but as we come to a close, I'd really appreciate if you left a like and subscribed. And again, hit the hype thing. I have no idea how that works or what that does, but I would appreciate if you tried it just to see what happens. I know it's annoying to ask, but hey, sometimes people just forget. As for me, that's it for now. I have some more Baldur's Gate 3 content planned, but I would love ideas that maybe don't involve a 50-hour playthrough. You know, maybe just one of those videos where I can yap about shit. I like those ones. So let me know if you think of anything. Thank you all again so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. GG's, everybody.